Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Planet Coaster here on Theme Park Worldwide. In this episode, I'm going to be continuing work on my Back to the Future indoor roller coaster. Of course, it's episode 11, and if you want to see me building up the coaster hardware itself, then you want to watch episode 10, the last episode that I did, where I actually built the coaster structure, and of course the building that is going to surround it, the show building that this attraction is based in. But yes, so welcome to the video. Of course, a big thank you to all of you for your suggestions, especially for this one. There's been so many people commenting, giving me ideas and suggestions for this coaster, and I really have taken on all of those. I probably took on more suggestions from people for this ride than I ever have done with anything else in Planet Coaster, so I really do appreciate your support with the series, and of course any ideas that you may have to help improve the rides that I'm building here and just the park in general. But yeah, let's kick straight off then. We're starting to do some of the the little starter section to this ride before the launch. So obviously you're going to come out of that station, you turn around to the left, and you do a bit of a 180 really, and then you start to come back round towards the launch, where you're going to go through what is like a futuristic sort of area what Doc Brown has been creating his latest inventions. So obviously in the Back to the Future series, he's got his home, he's got that big shed what he works in, which is like his garage if you like, where he stores the DeLorean, all his other crazy things. There's clocks on the wall, all that kind of stuff. What we're doing here is bringing that into more of a much more modern feel. There's going to be all sorts in this section. Yes, there's going to be a couple of old DeLoreans parked up, all that kind of stuff. Barrels, all like biohazard symbols, lots of smoke effects, a bit of electricity effects in here, all that kind of stuff, just to sort of build you up before you launch out. I'm also going to put a screen in here as well with a little bit of a video with Doc Brown, where I'll do a little bit of talking before, of course, you come round and see the main room itself. But yeah, I haven't really got a massive master plan with this one in terms of what I'm going to do with it. As you'll see here over the next 10 minutes or so, whilst I'm completing this room, it's more a matter of just bringing in lots of smaller items, using both the sci-fi pack and also the Back to the Future pack to sort of put it all together really. And you can see that I'm putting like the grills on the floor, obviously just gives it a bit more of a feel. Obviously this at the moment is a big large empty warehouse effectively, with all like the black walls and roof and everything, so that is going to change throughout this episode, and you're going to start to see a lot of this ride come together in this one. Like I say, it won't be finished for this episode. There is going to be another episode so number 12, where I'll actually complete this ride. But yeah, as you can see, it's just about adding in little details. So this section I'm working on just here is actually the final part that you'll see before the launch itself. I'm planning on adding lots of pipes and things quite high up in here as well. And yeah, it's got a bit of a inside of like some sort of laboratory, some sort of science lab. That's the sort of feel I want to go down. But of course I still don't want it to look too space style. It still needs to look a bit like, you know, a workshop. So that's what I'm doing here by building these steps and like a little balcony what takes you up to a certain section. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's coming together so far. Obviously, you'll start to see all the details and things coming in this episode, what are going to add to the theme, such as a lot of people have suggested on the launch about having the fire down at the side, because obviously when in the movie for Back to the Future, you see like the fire from where the vehicle is launched basically, and so that's my plan with this one, to do a very similar sort of thing with that. However, say you actually see the effect, I don't just want to sort of have the fire after the train's gone over it. The plan here is to sort of do it as the train is going along and have fire coming up at the side of the launch, so I'm sure that'll look really good. Again, a lot of this stuff doesn't really need much of an explanation, it's more just putting in lots of details, and as you can see what I've done already in the first few minutes down in that bottom section, that's what's going to carry on throughout this entire section before the launch. Obviously the plan here is that Doc Brown's got this new time travelling machine, the DeLorean, what can carry more people, similar to what the Universal story went by with the film that was used there before it got turned into the Simpsons ride. But yeah, obviously we're going to take you on this epic journey, this adventure. I have decided to do a Wild West scene that you'll see later in this episode, which will be very similar to what you saw in the final Back to the Future movie, part 3. I plan on having like a saloon and stuff there, all that kind of stuff. Obviously a little shop selling like coffins and all that sort of stuff, because that was in the film. I've actually rewatched a couple of the Back to the Future films. I rewatched the original and also number 3, just so I could get some inspiration really for this ride. I would like to do a little section on Back to the Future 2, of course, where you had like all the futuristic stuff, where it was based in like 2017. I'd like to do something along those lines around this ride as well, but I'm just not too sure whereabouts in the show building to do this just yet. But like I say, keep your suggestions coming in. It's always nice to see what you guys think I should be doing with the park, and of course this ride in particular. It's strange for me doing sort of IPs, intellectual properties, because normally I do my own ideas, my own stuff, and obviously with this, yeah, it's still completely different to what the parks have actually built, but I don't normally use brands. I normally come up with my own stories and ideas, so it's a little bit different for me, this one. As you can see there, lots of details going on the walls, because the trains will be going very slow through this section. It's just kicker wheels that are pushing it through, so you've got a lot of time to appreciate all the theming. And yeah, like I said, I don't really come up with too much of a plan. I more just go with the flow, see what items fit where, and you'll see me sometimes I'll delete something, sometimes I'll like it so I'll duplicate it somewhere else. That's what this game's all about. It's about experimenting. A lot of people do comment and say, Sean, how do you get your ideas? How do you do it? Well, to be honest, you just have to have a bit of imagination and go for it. Just having a look at some of them new archways there from the vintage pack. I love that sort of stuff. And I'm really liking the idea of maybe doing like a vintage pier down on the right hand side of the park. I think I spoke about it in the last episode, but yeah, I'd like to do some sort of vintage pier with a few like heritage rides, and obviously we've not really got any flat rides in this part yet, well, none at all, so I'd like to have a little section where there's quite a few different smaller flat rides in, mainly just to help with those queues, because I love parks where you've got a good variety of attractions, and also a water ride of some form would be quite nice down there as well. I'm just not too sure how I could fit that in with the heritage feel, so maybe I'll do that in a little sub area just next to it. Lots of spare tyres going in just there for the DeLorean. Again, it's just about stacking stuff up. You can see there's bits of DeLoreans and ride parts and all sorts chucked around, different car parts, all that sort of stuff. What just adds to it and gives it a bit of a feel. And yeah, that's the fire strip I just showed you a little clip of there, what I'm going to use down that launch section. And also on the second launch, I'll use that as well, with it being quite a big effect. Obviously that's a turnaround section there, so I'm going to have a DeLorean just there. You've got all the screens behind it. It's a bit like Doc Brown's been doing all this programming for this new prototype DeLorean and all that kind of stuff. I've still not got the storyline exact for what I want with this, but I'm sure you'll be glad to know, much like my Jaws ride, I will be doing some onboard audio for this one with a full experience POV, and I'm sure a lot of you will enjoy that one. Will the mysterious bystander make a return? He might do, you never know. But yeah, it's coming together really nice, this one. But I'll leave you with a bit of theme park music, and I'll come back to you in a few minutes when this section just here is nearly complete. So as you saw there, a bit of on-ride footage just to give you a bit of an idea of how that's going to look when you actually sat on the trains. I'm now just installing a screen just there. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the episode, we're going to have Doc Brown doing some sort of video just there. As you can see, just making sure that fits in nicely on that corner. So as soon as you turn the corner out of the station, you'll see the screen in the distance. The video can be triggered to start playing, and then there can be some other special effects down there as well. I am going to start work on the triggers in this episode, but obviously with such a big scale ride like this, the triggered effects is going to be a huge part of it. So I'll be focusing on that mainly in the next episode. It's more about getting the basis of theming in. Yes, I'll be putting in my smoke effects and mist and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to directly start triggering things too much in this episode. Don't get me wrong, I'll do a few bits, especially like the fire on the launch that you'll see shortly, because obviously I need to get an idea of how that's going to be before I can trigger some other effects. But yeah, I don't want to sort of jump too far ahead in this episode. I'm more about getting in the theming in place before I start programming things and thinking about all that kind of stuff. But here you can see some more like of the tubes going in. This is basically just bits of random theming just to fill the space really, and just give a bit more to look at. I want you to come out of that station, turn left around that corner, and just think, wow, what have I come into here? And yeah, it's just completely different to anything what you'll have seen before with this one. I want it to be very different, a very exhilarating experience, and obviously not knowing about what the coaster layout is really going to add to this one. All of the coaster except that one inversion is indoors. A few people have said I should use some of like the closing doors and things to give more of an effect, so that's something that I'll probably do either later in this episode or the next episode. Add in some like doors in some sections just to so it doesn't give too much away really, so it reveals certain things a bit when you get a bit closer to them. As you can see here, just lots of random theming on the wall. Doesn't need to be quite as detailed this section as the other sort of 2/3 of this building here. Mainly because obviously you're going to be focused on the video, what's going to be playing on that screen. So there doesn't need to be quite as many details around. But what I'm thinking of doing here is adding some little mini computer screens in front, just so it's a bit like Doc Brown's sort of control station. It's all very modern compared to the Back to the Future film series. It's sort of taking it into the future. We're kind of imagining that the future is not 2017, but the future is like 2040 sort of thing. You know, it's all modern lights, a bit sci-fi. But yeah, this workshop, and it's looking really good so far. There's a lot of individual items in here, a lot of pieces, and yeah, as I mentioned in the last episode, this is a huge project here. It's going to span over a few episodes. It might not even be complete in the next episode. I'm sure the interior will be, but I'm not too sure on the exterior. That might span into another episode with this one, because I don't want to rush these projects, hence why it's been a couple of weeks since the last episode of this. Obviously with Theme Park Worldwide, there's a lot of videos going on. We have a new video on the channel every day, so there's so much going on. I've got about 8 vlogs that I've filmed in the past week or so that are all coming online. There's so much going on, and it's just finding the time to sit here and dedicate 5, maybe 6, 7 hours to Planet Coaster, because it is an intense game to play. It really is. It's not easy to find the time, especially over the summer season. Over winter, I've got a lot more time to play the game. But of course, as soon as they announced the studios pack a few months back, I really wanted to do another series, and of course I'm really glad that I'm doing it. I'm loving this park so far. I feel like it's got more of a complete package feel to it than Volcano Springs, my last park. But if you've not seen that, of course, check it out. It's all here in our Planet Coaster playlist on Theme Park Worldwide, where you can look back through that one and all the details that I did with that. Some more on-ride footage there, just to give you a bit of an idea of how detailed this is going to look. And oh yeah, straight through into that launch that I'll start to work on in just a few minutes. But yeah, it gives you a good idea of how this ride's going to look now. A bit more POV footage there, and continuing on with the theming. Obviously you'll notice that there's no roofs on any of this yet, mainly because it's so much easier to build something and put details in without actually having the roof on. The roof should be the last thing, or one of the last things that you do. Obviously if you're going to put bits of theming on the roof, like I plan to in some of these scenes, especially this first one here, then yeah, you will need to put the roof on first and then add the scenery. Or you could build your roof in a different place, so you could raise it up at the side, put all your theming underneath, and then bring it across to where you want it. And that's something that I'll probably do with some sections with this ride, just because it's going to be quite difficult for me to actually see where I need to put some theming in. Here you can see I'm just looking at some special effects. I don't trigger these yet, but something I might look at doing, or I might just leave them on depending on how I feel. But yeah, just to give you that feeling of power and electricity. Obviously you've got them big generators on the left and right hand side there, like the charger points. It's a very futuristic take on Back to the Future, and that's what I wanted to do really. It's not like following on from the film in such a, you're in this old shed with cloths over things and stuff like that. It's a very modern, futuristic style. Like I say, imagine Back to the Future if it was made now, sort of thing. But of course, we're still going to have them throwbacks to some of the classic things as well, like the third film with the Wild West section. And yeah, I think that's going to look really nice. Obviously, you can see here that I'm looking at it in the dark, so I add lighting in now. Because obviously this ride, it's a dark ride, it will be dark inside of these scenes, so I need to look at lighting. Lots of blues, purples and reds you'll see me use here to add to that feel. I don't plan on really having any of these lights flashing in this section. I don't want it to be too in your face, too intense. I want people to see the theme and I want it all lit up, and then we'll start to think about flashing lights maybe 2/3 into the ride, where we start making our return back towards the end section of the coaster, where it all goes a little bit crazy, and yeah, make it a little bit more intense at that section. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's looking so far. It's one of them rides that, and I like this in person when I go to theme parks, and if you do watch the vlogs on the channel, you'll know that I'm very much like this. I look at the details. I know it sounds bad, but sometimes the first things I look at in an attraction, especially a dark ride, is the floor and the ceiling, because I like to feel immersed into it. And I know that's one of my funny words, immersed. I use it a lot, but I mean it. I mean, I really like to feel like I'm fully involved in an attraction, and if there's one thing what looks out of place, it can ruin an experience for me. Say I ever built my own attraction or theme park, I'd want it to be solid throughout, you know what I mean? I don't want little things to take away from it. If you're doing it, you may as well do a proper job, that's my opinion. And that's what I'm doing with this series. I don't want to rush it. I could get a video out there every week in this series, but I'd be rushing it, and I don't want to do that. I want to take my time and see how it all comes together. But you can see there now I'm starting to look down that launch, ready for the next section in this episode, where I'm going to start to look at some of the launch effects. Now my plan here is to add stars around a lot of the ride. Some more footage there, you just see it. Oh, it looks good, sped up there obviously, but yeah, my plan is to add a lot of stars around the ride, like the star cloths. I'm going to film my two main sections of the coaster with that, and also this first launch as well. And then I'm going to look at adding in the next episode theming and stuff on top of that. Maybe a few other DeLoreans flying around, a bit like we've got traffic up in the sky, or in this space field. That's what I'm kind of going to go for. But yeah, it's coming together nicely so far. I'm really quite chuffed with it. And like I say, you'll start to see me now put the roof on that section before I add a few more details on it, and then start work on the launch section. But there we go, I'll leave you again for a few minutes with a little bit of music, and of course you'll start to see what I mean now in terms of starting to work on the launch for the ride. And I'll come back to you in a few minutes and talk a little bit more about what I'm doing. So as you've seen just there, I've started to put in some of the star cloths now, just to give you a bit of an idea of how I want quite a few of these scenes to look. Because as you can see there in that launch tunnel, you now can't really tell whereabouts you are. Obviously, you know you're inside this big building, but yeah, I don't want you to be able to tell that. And yeah, I think it looks really nice actually. All the stars on the ceiling, the floor, and the walls in there to really give it that feel. As you can see here, I've put in the fire effect. Now, of course, this in the film is after the actual DeLorean has launched forward to 88 miles an hour. You see sort of that from where the tyres were. Obviously, that would be a bit pointless in this ride because you wouldn't be able to see the effect. So what I'm planning to do here, and as you'll see from the on-ride footage here, is just have it sort of gradually in front. So as we're launching out here, that first set goes, then the second set, third set, fourth set, fifth set, as you're launching forwards just there. So yeah, I think it looks quite nice that. Obviously, yeah, in the film it's caused by the tyre marks, but you can't really give that effect on here, else it'd be a bit pointless. You wouldn't be able to see the fire for enough. So if you're having a big effect like that, you certainly want people to see it. Obviously, I've put in one of the special effects at the end now. Both the fire and this effect there at the end both came with the Back to the Future DLC, along with this as well, the little speed counter. I'm putting in a few of these down here, just so it's a bit crazy really, isn't it? Like, oh, we're at 88 miles an hour. Obviously, I did mention this when we built the coaster in the last episode. The speed of the coaster is more around 55 miles an hour, not 88. But obviously when you're in this building, it's going to simulate the feel that you are going to 88 miles an hour. If I had done it at that speed, the building would have had to have been much taller, much more space, and I thought, well, you know, it doesn't need to be. It needs to be just to simulate that speed. And you can see there from a few bits of on-ride footage how that is going to look. And yeah, it's quite an intense experience actually. You're going to launch forward into all these stars and of course follow on with the ride from there. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. These stars that I'm putting in now, extending the star wall out, is mainly so you don't see like the clockometer until you get halfway down the launch, just to add to the realism really. I just don't want you seeing 88 before you even made it down to the launch. And yeah, right, let's move on then to this next section. Another new scene that I'm putting in now. This is going to be the largest detailed scene in the entire ride. And this is of course going to be simulating from Back to the Future 3, the Wild West area. And yeah, this is going to be a really nice scene, this one, but obviously it's going to be quite hard to make it look like you're outside at night. Now originally I was thinking about doing this scene more in the daytime, hence why there's a screen at the back there with all the clouds on and the blue sky. I actually get rid of that in the next couple of minutes, mainly because I had a bit of a change of heart for how I wanted this to be. I thought, oh, it'll look nice in the daytime, but then I thought, hang on a minute, it's just not going to look anywhere near as good. So what I'm going to do is do it that it's night time and use some orange, some reds, yellow lighting, just to give it a bit of a sunset sort of feel in here. And obviously that helps in terms of making it feel a lot more realistic. We're going to be putting in a lot of rocks in here. Sean's hashtag Rockworks coming in, and yeah, the Rockworks services, and putting plenty of that inside here. Come on, it wouldn't be a Sean ride in Planet Coaster without some rocks, would it? But yes, that's my plan with this one, just to add all that in. What I'm doing here then to put in the sand is obviously I can't put sand in here, because actual sand, because A, you wouldn't do that anyway because it's an indoor dark ride, and B, you can't physically do it in the game because it's not actually land, is it? It's raised up, this section. There's a coaster underneath this in the show building. So what I've done here is quite clever. I just went on Google Images, typed in sand, got a nice HD image of sand, and there it is. I've actually put it onto one of the screens and put it on the floor just there to give it a nice feel. So that's a little tip. That's what I did also with the blue sky. Obviously I do get rid of that in a moment, but for if you want to do something similar yourself or use that for your ride, you can just get rid of the you can just use the sky or an image to create like a backdrop, a floor, a ceiling. If I wanted to, instead of putting all the stars everywhere over the walls individually, I could have just used them screens, but I just wanted to make sure it all matched up right, so I thought I will just use the squares, and it's not actually took too long to do. But yeah, so here then it's going to be lots of Wild West buildings. It's not going to be an exact copy from the film because none of this ride is. It's my own take on it, but it is going to be from that Wild West section. We're going to have some sort of shooting scene here, some sort of fight scene going on, and then of course you'll launch out. That second launch starts just there where I've put like the little cover over it, and you'll come into that section more like on the audio. I'll say something along the lines of, you know, oh god, we need to get out of here, it's time to get going, and obviously we'll launch forward and out into that next inversion. But yeah, you know, so with this one, it's quite an interesting thing to do, a bit different. And I've set myself a bit of a challenge here, making it look like you're outside when you're actually inside. But I think it'll look good. A lot of you are probably thinking, Sean, why didn't you just do an outdoor section there on this coaster? Well, I like to set myself a bit of a challenge. I like to do stuff a bit different. And a bit like some of the Disney dark rides, they've all got scenes, well, most of them have got scenes where it's outside, where it's simulating outside, but it's actually inside. So I wanted to do a bit of a Disney with that and use lighting and things to make it look great. If you've ever actually been to Disneyland Paris, to Walt Disney Studios, and you've seen the station for Crush's coaster, I'm kind of wanting to look a bit like that in terms of, yeah, I know that's like a fishing port and you've got like all steel corrugated buildings and stuff, but that's the kind of lighting feel that I want to go for, because that's supposed to be an outdoor area, but it's all inside a show building. If you've not seen that before, if you just Google Crush's Coaster Station Disneyland Paris, and you'll see what I mean with that. It's well worth opening another tab and having a look, because that's what Disney do. A lot of you who are watching this have probably not been to Disney before. A lot of you probably have been and know what I'm on about, but if you haven't seen it, I certainly recommend having a look. And I have filmed it in quite a few different vlogs here on the channel as well. Obviously, if you do just watch our Planet Coaster and don't even know about the vlogs, click onto the Theme Park Worldwide channel and actually have a look at what other things we do as well. There's over 430 theme park vlogs on there now that I've been doing since 2012. And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest theme park news, every Wednesday here on the channel we do a weekly news series called TPW Weekly, so that's well worth checking out as well. Also, if you've got any photos from on rides or you out the front of rides, maybe you bump into one of us from the channel at a park and have a selfie, you can actually send it in and we do like a section at the end with all your photos. Also, with that, there's other sections in there as well, looking at my merchandise, and a fantastic section that I brought in this year called Guess the Ride, where you actually have to look at a zoomed in image or a sound clip and guess what the ride is. So check it out, it's on every Wednesday here on our channel. As you can see, there's some more rocks going in there down at the back and just filling in the space. Some of these rocks are spreading underneath into that scene, but luckily that kind of fits with what I want the final scene of this ride to be, which I'll tell you about in the next episode when we complete the indoor section of this ride and possibly the outside. But again, I don't want to rush it, it's one of those, isn't it? But I have actually already started to film the next episode, so it won't be quite as long a wait as you waited between the last episode and this one. Like I say, I've got so much going on the channel, especially in August over summer. It's a busy one, it really is. But anyway, I'll leave you again for a couple of minutes whilst I carry on with this, and then we'll come back, talk a bit about what I've done, and wrap up this episode of Let's Play Planet Coaster. So as you can see just there, I've been putting in a lot of smaller details into this Wild West scene. Obviously it's something completely different to what I've done here before, and I think it looks really nice. I think there's a bit of work to be done in places, especially in terms of getting that atmosphere right, maybe a few bits of mist effects and things in some places. But overall, I think it looks good. I mean, it's something completely different, and here you can see a bit of POV footage from how that's going to look. Bear in mind the roof isn't on yet. But I think it's got quite a nice sort of sunset, early evening atmosphere in there. You don't want to light things up too much, but you just got to get that light level just right. So maybe a little bit more lighting on some of these buildings, and I do actually just look at that in a second. But and then you'll come forward here, the fight scene carries on, and you'll launch forward and carry on into that next inversion. And yeah, so it's just about making sure the details and the transitions look right, really. Obviously this transition here is that you're travelling through time, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're going to have the sound of the train just there on the right hand side. A really loud sort of train horn will go off as you go past that, give you a bit of a jump scare, and of course you go round into that scene. Here I just sort of move the park hands because I want to hide them a little bit. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode really, but don't worry, it won't be quite as long between this episode and the next one. I have already started to film it, and I look forward to sharing it with you guys as I carry on with the interior of my version of Back to the Future The Ride, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. But there you go, thank you very much for watching this video. As always, I'm Sean Sandbrook, this is Theme Park Worldwide. Make sure you check out our many other videos on the channel. Like I said earlier on, I've filmed more vlogs this year than any other year since I started the channel back in 2012. There's our weekly news series every Wednesday. There's lots of different on and off ride videos coming throughout the week as well, so stay tuned for all of those. And in terms of this, I'm pleased with how it looks so far, but please keep suggesting all your different ideas. I love seeing what you guys come up with, and yeah, it's always great, and I definitely take that into consideration. Thanks for watching, and that means it's time to cue those credits. See you in the next episode.